For more now, we're joined by former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East and ABC News contributor Mick Mulroy. Mick, the U.S. has conducted the first known strike on Venezuelan soil after it hit a dock allegedly targeting drugs that were being loaded onto boats. Russia has now also come into play, reassuring Venezuela that it has its support. So big picture, what does this escalation represent? Where do we go from here?
Certainly, Andrew, the president had forecasted both that there was a covert campaign that he had authorized in Venezuela and that there would be land strikes. And so now we see that he intends to use this covert campaign, the CIA likely, to do these type of strikes. And this might just be the tip of the iceberg. There might be many more going on. We found out about this because the president actually referenced it, as you showed in an interview. But there could be several more going on, and this might be escalatory to get President Maduro to stand down. As far as Russia's support to Venezuela, they have been supporting for quite some time. That is of concern to the United States, particularly if there's any kind of operation to apprehend Maduro, just like there was back in the 90s for Noriega. A lot of the weapon systems that Russia provides the Venezuelans are a threat to aircraft, including helicopters that could be used to carry special operation forces. So it is a viable threat, and I'm sure that it's taken notice in the Pentagon and at Langley.
So details as to whom carried this dock strike remain murky, whether it was the CIA or the U.S. military, for example. Does it even matter?
It does, because the CIA has different authorities than the military. The CIA under Title 50, it is deniable. The president not only didn't need to talk about it, but can actually say it didn't happen. That's obviously not the case. Now, I don't know exactly who carried this out, but if the military is saying it wasn't them, then by deduction, and the fact that the president had mentioned the covert campaign, it's likely the CIA.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is accusing the U.S. of using him as an excuse to go after Venezuela's natural resources. Could that be the case here, or is the U.S. just after a regime change in Venezuela?
So President Trump has referenced that Venezuela stole U.S. oil. I think he's referring to the fact that U.S. energy companies had a partnership with Venezuela to get their oil out of the ground, essentially, and get it to market. Venezuela nationalized it and kicked those companies out. That doesn't mean it was U.S. Property, and I don't think that would be the case. I don't think the U.S. would obviously go in and take oil based on military force. But I do think it's clear that it's beyond just a drug interdiction operation. We wouldn't need to interdict oil tankers going to Venezuela to essentially cut out the funding for the regime. So this looks more like it is in line with regime change. And the chief of staff actually said that to the effect that she was talking about why this was happening. So this taken together, this major naval blockade, these strikes inside the territory of Venezuela, look like this is really to push Maduro to essentially leave on his own accord. Hopefully it doesn't need any more escalatory action after that.
So you touched on it a bit there. U.S. politicians, mostly Republicans, have argued for regime change in Venezuela. What has been America's luck with that in other countries?
So not great. I mean, certainly we had a regime change in Iraq when we invaded and removed Saddam Hussein, very costly in lives and treasure. I don't think that the American people would like to see an actual invasion of Venezuela. That would be significant, costly, and likely very long term. But if this pressure campaign gets Maduro to voluntarily step down, that might be something different. But this could be a giant bluff, or it could be building to something that I think would be much more substantial, like a direct military and CIA action inside Venezuela to either oust Maduro by force with a coup or direct military action. We certainly are postured to do that. I just don't think that's the ultimate outcome here.
Mick, let's turn now to Iran. The country announced over the weekend it was at war with the U.S., Israel, and Europe. This comes as protests have taken over the country, due mainly to economic issues, especially the plummeting value of the nation's currency. What do you make of Iran's war declaration and the situation in their country right now?
So, Andrew, I think they're seeing a lot of these protests you just referenced, and they're very concerned about the survivability of the regime. The first thing that most of these type of regimes do is try to come up with an enemy outside to get the people to rally around them. So saying they're at war with the United States, Europe, and Israel is obviously not the case, but it seems to me that they're really inclined to try to shift the narration inside Iran to something other than the fact they have completely failed the Iranian people and their economy is in free fall. Another way to repair that would be to enter into a new agreement with the United States on the nuclear agreement, and that would ultimately relieve them of the sanctions, which is one of the biggest factors causing such a dire economic situation in the country.
Mick Mulroy, thank you for your time.